Hello, and welcome to part 2 of the RJM Core video series, Successful Project Planning. In this episode, we'll explore the second step of the project process, developing a project strategy. John Jones, owner of Catalyst Consulting, is joining us today to provide some insight into the municipal RFP process. So John, who's typically involved in this process of developing an RFP?
So who typically is involved is your finance department, because they may have the boilerplate of the RFP document, and then always your city attorney's office, because they have the legal contract agreement that needs to be included in it. Then it's really up to the recreation professional, the one that is actually developing and guiding this RFP through the process, that will need to do their research to determine what are the pieces of the RFP that are important to that, whatever their project's going to be.
So essentially developing the scope of work, if you will.
Exactly. And the scope of work is the most important piece of the RFP, because it all boils down to that scope of work is the driving instrument for both the city as what their ultimate outcome and goal is, and how that's communicated to the potential firm that is actually wanting to be hired to do this for the city.
So let's take a step back here. What is the first step or first actionable item that you would do as staff to actually develop an RFP and go through the municipal process?
First thing you do is do your research. First of all, accept the assignment, say, yes, boss, this will be done. Secondly, now, do your research. Go talk to other municipalities, do some queries on your CPRS network, and just find out who has done something similar.
So John, once you have all of your data collected of your scope of work and what you're going to reach out to consultants for, how do you actually then launch that RFP? Is there a magic website? Is there a special person in your email? How do you actually notify the public or all the consulting teams out there?
All right, so a couple of things happen. First and foremost, there's a typical process your city may be using as a reference planet bid. So that really is your tool to get it out to your professional organizations that may be interested in this project. But also the council typically launches it and says to the community in their particular area, says, hey, we're going forward on this, whatever the project is for the city. We really want community engagement. Here's the general timelines that will take place. Please look out for that.
So when you begin the RFP process, taking it back even a step further, who actually says, okay, we have funding, John, go forth and give me an RFP to get a consultant? Where does that step happen and how does that process actually evolve?
Council members may start the process and say, hey, I heard that these residents in the North End really need XYZ. How can we do that? Well, then your city manager may say, okay, hey, do we have any capital funds tucked away or some other grant funding, other kind of funding devices that we could do this? So what you do at that point, as a director, I would contact agencies. I'd go to CPRS, I'd do my little query, say, hey, we're thinking about doing a splash pad, or we're thinking about doing pickleball courts. We're thinking about doing XYZ. Have you done something recently? If so, give me a general idea of what the costs are. And so that way you can go back to your CM or your commission council with some data that's rough. We have this, but we need this. So what are the options for us? And that's where maybe, particular Measure A for LA County and perhaps Prop 68 or another environmental grants, the state has money. And so that's where you start to bring your funding pieces together.
John, in writing these RFPs, getting to try and get that technical scope of work, what can be done in the actual writing of it to avoid discrepancies?
Any project that you do in your professional environment, you want to make sure you start correctly with starting the right steps. Making sure you've done your homework, making sure you thoughtfully look through your scope of services, defined it, have it reviewed by your peers to make sure there's no editorial challenges with it in context, and then just going through your city's process of getting it out there, getting as many solicitations out there as possible for vendors to want to be part of this environment, and dedicating on the front side, identifying the time it's going to consume of your staff and or decide to hire another third-party person to manage it for you. Those are all decisions that have to happen on the front side.
John, thank you very much for joining us today on this video and sharing your thoughts and ideas on this RFP process. Join us for future videos as we continue to explore successful project planning.